and bail out the Indian nuclear establishment, and therefore spare India of any difficult choices. I think the choice India has to face is it gets to keep its nuclear weapons. Nobody's saying it's going to sign or should sign the Non-Proliferation Treaty and give up all its nuclear weapons. It gets to keep its nuclear weapons as long as the U.S. has them, as long as China has them. We all have a disarmament problem we have to work on together, but India's not going to go ahead of that. But India has to decide if it's more important to produce more bomb material than it has today than it is to get international help to develop nuclear energy. It's a choice. And you can't have everything often in life or in politics. And once India clarifies that choice, and if it's willing to say that, yes, we have enough bomb material, and our greater priority is electricity, then these modifications that I'm talking about, that I believe are necessary to address U.S. interests, but also international interests, those modifications can be made readily. I'll stop there.
George, thanks very much. I really needed to cut you some slack because you needed to do an introduction to this issue, and I appreciate that introduction that you gave. Our next speaker is Joan Rolfing, who is the Senior Vice President for Programs and Operations at the Nuclear Threat Initiative. She came to NTI after 6 years with the Department of Energy, serving in a number of positions, including Senior Advisor for National Security to the Secretary of Energy, and also as Director of the Office of Non-Proliferation and National Security. Ms. Rolfing.
Thank you very much. As you can probably hear in my voice, I'm suffering from a touch of laryngitis, so I will end up yielding back a portion of my time, but would like to take the opportunity to make a few short points and to build on what George has already said. I was expecting George to go a little bit further in laying out some of the points that he made in an excellent article that he's recently written. If I can show for you here, George, a copy of it. Yeah. Also located on the Carnegie Endowment website at ceip.org. I'm going to get a plug-in for my website before we're done here, too. In any event, it's entitled Faulty Promises, the U.S.-India Nuclear Deal. Maybe let me step back for a minute and start with folks would probably be expecting me to give a strong criticism for the deal, given my current position at the Nuclear Threat Initiative, where we are working to reduce the risk of use of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons. Rather than articulating much of the criticism that one might expect, I'd like to focus on the glass half full and talk about how, even though I think this is not a perfect deal, there are certain aspects of it which are, at least hold the potential to be quite beneficial. I'll come to those in a second. Let me just say, George, what you articulated about the importance of India recognizing that it can't have everything, that it needs to make some hard choices, and that the administration would have been better off to negotiate a deal which held India to the same standard that the other nuclear weapon states right now are observing in terms of fissile material protection. I think, in fact, that would have been a better outcome. And in your piece, you proposed that a modification to the deal would be for the U.S., instead of offering the full suite of nuclear technology to India, that we would have agreed to provide fuel for India's nuclear reactors, but to stop at fuel and not to provide nuclear reactor technology. I think I'd like to just take exception with that view to this extent. I agree that ideally we should be holding India accountable in terms of fissile material production, that it would have been better had we negotiated a deal in which India agreed it would no longer produce fissile material that could be used for nuclear weapons. And because of that, I think our willingness to provide nuclear reactor technology is important in enabling India